he brought us all along with his enthusiasm and his love of life and his curiosity, and he made everybody feel a part of this battle.
Ethel Kennedy's life was shattered by gunfire twice. Did you know that? First, in 1963, when her brother-in-law, President John F. Kennedy, was assassinated. Then, in 1968, when her husband, Robert F. Kennedy, was gunned down before her eyes. In an instant, she became a widow with 11 children, forced to carry on alone. Once at the heart of America's most powerful dynasty, she was left to endure a lifetime of unimaginable grief. Please stay calm to listen about the sad life of Ethel Kennedy. Let's begin Ethel Kennedy's tragic series of events with the heartbreaking death of her husband. At midnight on June 5, 1968, a tragic event unfolded that would leave a lasting mark on American history. Robert F. Kennedy, a U.S. Senator from New York and a leading Democratic presidential candidate, was mortally wounded by a young Palestinian immigrant named Sirhan Sirhan. The assassination took place in the kitchen pantry of the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, moments after Kennedy had given a victory speech celebrating his win in the California Democratic primary. The attack came as a devastating shock to the nation, especially as it occurred only 5 years after the assassination of his older brother, President John F. Kennedy. Kennedy was immediately rushed to Good Samaritan Hospital, but the gunshot wounds proved fatal. Despite the best efforts of surgeons and medical personnel, he succumbed to his injuries the following day, June 6, 1968, at the age of 42. His sudden and violent death sent waves of grief across the United States and the world, as many had seen him as a beacon of hope for a divided nation. At the time of the assassination, Ethel Kennedy, Robert's wife, was present at the Ambassador Hotel, only a short distance away when the shooting occurred. She was 3 months pregnant with their 11th child, Rory Kennedy. In the chaotic aftermath, she rushed to her husband's side, providing comfort as he lay gravely wounded on the floor. Her presence during such a horrifying moment underscored the deep bond the couple shared and the heartbreak she endured. The loss of Robert F. Kennedy was deeply felt across the political spectrum, and President Lyndon B. Johnson swiftly declared a national day of mourning to honor his life and contributions. Americans from all walks of life grieved the passing of a leader who had championed civil rights, social justice, and a vision of unity in a turbulent era. The assassination further deepened the political unrest of the 1960s, coming on the heels of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s murder just 2 months earlier. In the midst of her sorrow, Ethel Kennedy showed remarkable grace and resilience. On June 19, 1968, she personally wrote a handwritten note to President Johnson and First Lady Lady Bird Johnson, expressing her gratitude for their support during her family's time of immense loss. Despite the political tensions between the Kennedys and Johnson, particularly after Robert had challenged Johnson's leadership on issues like the Vietnam War, Ethel's letter reflected a dignified acknowledgement of their kindness. In the years following her husband's assassination, Ethel Kennedy remained committed to preserving his legacy. She publicly stated that she would never remarry, dedicating her life to raising their children and furthering Robert's work. Her devotion to his vision was evident in her continued involvement in political and humanitarian causes. She became a strong advocate for social justice, human rights, and activism, ensuring that her husband's ideals lived on. Despite her deep grief, Ethel maintained an active social life, occasionally attending dinners, theater events, and parties. She was often accompanied by singer and family friend Andy Williams, who provided companionship during those difficult years. Their close friendship led to speculation, but Ethel remained steadfast in her commitment to honoring Robert's memory and never pursued another marriage. Now, let's turn your attention to the marriage of Ethel Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy. Their love story began in the late 1940s and culminated in their engagement in February 1950. Their relationship was deeply rooted in shared values, family connections, and a mutual commitment to public service. On June 17, 1950, the couple married in a grand Catholic ceremony at St. Mary Church in Greenwich, Connecticut, Ethel's hometown. Their wedding was a significant social event, attended by members of both prominent families, the politically influential Kennedys and the wealthy Skakels, who had built their fortune in the coal and oil industries. The Boston Globe noted that their union brought together two large fortunes, emphasizing the merging of two powerful and well-established dynasties. Following their wedding, the young couple embarked on the next chapter of their lives. Robert Kennedy, who had recently graduated from the University of Virginia School of Law, pursued a career in public service, beginning his work at the U.S. Department of Justice. Ethel, meanwhile, embraced her role as a supportive wife, helping to manage their growing family while remaining actively involved in political and social causes. In these early years, the Kennedys lived in the Washington, D.C. area, where Robert's career was steadily advancing. In 1952, as Robert's brother, John F. Kennedy, launched his campaign for the U.S. Senate, the couple relocated to Boston, Massachusetts, temporarily moving into a modest rooming house. This period marked the beginning of Ethel's direct involvement in political campaigns. She played a crucial role in John's Senate bid, helping to organize a series of social gatherings known as tea parties. These events were designed to introduce John F. Kennedy to potential voters, particularly women, in an informal and approachable setting. At these gatherings, Ethel and other Kennedy family members would discuss John's policy ideas, his vision for Massachusetts, and his ability to lead. The tea parties proved to be highly successful, enhancing JFK's appeal to a broader electorate and contributing to his eventual victory in the 1952 Senate race. Ethel's natural charisma and energy made her a valuable asset in political campaigning. She possessed a warm and engaging personality that drew people in, and her ability to connect with voters helped solidify the Kennedy family's growing political influence. Her dedication to the campaign also reinforced her deep commitment to the Kennedy mission of public service, a role she would continue to embrace throughout her life. Amid the excitement of political life, Ethel was also raising a growing family. By 1955, she had given birth to 4 children, balancing her responsibilities as a mother with her increasing involvement in politics. However, tragedy struck later that year, bringing profound sorrow to her life. On October 3, 1955, Ethel's parents, George and Ann Skakel, were both killed in a devastating plane crash in Union City, Oklahoma. The accident was a heartbreaking loss for Ethel, who had been very close to her parents. In 1956, Robert and Ethel Kennedy made a significant move when they purchased Hickory Hill, an expansive estate in McLean, Virginia, from Robert's older brother John F. Kennedy and his wife Jacqueline. Situated on 6 acres of land just west of Washington, D.C., Hickory Hill featured a grand 13-bedroom mansion, making it an ideal residence for the growing Kennedy family. At the time of purchase, Robert and Ethel already had 5 children, and the estate provided ample space for both family life and their increasingly active social and political engagements. Hickory Hill quickly became a vibrant center of activity, serving as a hub for political discussions, social gatherings, and family events. Ethel, known for her warm and energetic personality, played a key role in making the estate a lively and welcoming place. The Kennedys frequently hosted dinners, fundraisers, and informal gatherings that attracted a diverse and impressive guest list. Their home became a meeting ground for politicians, activists, journalists, and cultural icons, reflecting the couple's broad range of interests and connections. Conversations at Hickory Hill often revolved around pressing social and political issues of the time, as guests engaged in spirited debates about civil rights, foreign policy, and government reform. In addition to entertaining Washington's elite, Hickory Hill was also known for its family-oriented and often playful atmosphere. Ethel's love for adventure and the outdoors was evident in the way she encouraged her children and their friends to embrace an active lifestyle. The estate featured a large swimming pool, and the Kennedy children, along with their many cousins and neighborhood friends, could often be found playing touch football on the sprawling lawn. Ethel also had a well-documented love for animals, and at various points, Hickory Hill housed a wide array of pets, including horses, dogs, cats, and even more exotic creatures like a sea lion and an alligator. While Hickory Hill was the primary residence for Robert and Ethel, the couple also maintained a home in Hyannisport, Massachusetts, on Cape Cod. This seaside estate was part of the larger Kennedy compound, a beloved retreat for the extended Kennedy family. Hyannisport was not just a summer getaway, but also a place of deep sentimental and historical significance, where the family gathered for holidays, strategized political campaigns, and sought solace in times of personal tragedy. By 1960, the Kennedy family's political influence reached new heights when John F. Kennedy won the U.S. presidential election. His victory marked a defining moment in American history, ushering in the era of Camelot, a term often used to describe the idealism and youthful energy of his administration. As part of his cabinet, President Kennedy appointed Robert as the U.S. Attorney General, placing him at the forefront of critical civil rights and legal battles. During this time, Ethel continued to play an important supporting role, standing by her husband as he navigated his responsibilities in one of the most challenging positions in government. 2 years later, in 1962, President Kennedy tasked Robert and Ethel with an important diplomatic mission, a 28-day goodwill tour of 14 countries. Although the trip was officially described as informal, the host nations treated the Kennedys as representatives of the President and First Lady, underscoring their importance on the world stage. The couple's itinerary included visits to Asia, Latin America, and Europe, where they met with government leaders, engaged with local communities, and observed social and economic conditions firsthand. On November 22, 1963, Ethel Kennedy's world changed forever when she learned of the assassination of her brother-in-law, President John F. Kennedy. The devastating news came through an unexpected phone call to the Kennedy home, a call that would mark the beginning of one of the darkest days in American history. That afternoon, Ethel answered the telephone and was surprised to hear the voice of J. Edgar Hoover, the powerful and notoriously secretive director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. The moment was significant. Hoover had never before called the Attorney General's home directly, a sign that something urgent and tragic had occurred. Without hesitation, Ethel handed the phone to her husband, Robert, who listened in stunned silence as Hoover relayed the news that John F. Kennedy had been shot in Dallas, Texas. The shock of the moment was overwhelming. Robert, who had been extremely close to his older brother, was deeply shaken. As he absorbed the news, it fell upon him to inform Ethel of the terrible reality. The President of the United States, their beloved Jack, had been struck down. As the afternoon unfolded and more details emerged, Ethel remained by her husband's side, offering quiet strength as he grappled with his grief. The assassination was not only a national tragedy, but also a deeply personal one, tearing apart the close-knit Kennedy family. In the days that followed, Ethel provided support as Robert struggled to process his loss, helping to comfort their children while also being there for her grieving in-laws. Despite their sorrow, life continued, and Robert Kennedy gradually re-entered the political arena. In 1964, he launched his campaign for a seat in the U.S. Senate representing New York. Ethel, ever his enthusiastic supporter, played an active role in his campaign, accompanying him to rallies, engaging with voters, and using her charm and humor to diffuse political tensions. One of the major criticisms Robert faced during the race was the accusation of carpetbagging, the notion that he was an outsider who had no deep ties to New York. The charge stemmed from the fact that Robert had spent most of his life in Massachusetts and Washington, D.C., rather than in the state he sought to represent. Ethel, with her quick wit, responded to the criticism in a way that made light of the controversy while also reinforcing Robert's broader appeal. She jokingly suggested the campaign adopt the slogan, "There is only so much you can do for Massachusetts." Her humor disarmed critics and endeared her even more to the public, highlighting her natural ability to connect with people in a way that complemented her husband's more serious and policy-focused approach. With her unwavering support, Robert ultimately won the election, securing a seat in the U.S. Senate and further solidifying his place in national politics. As Robert settled into his role as senator, Ethel continued to encourage his ambitions, particularly when it came to the possibility of running for the presidency. By the late 1960s, political and social tensions in the United States were at an all-time high, with issues such as the Vietnam War, civil rights, and economic inequality dominating public discourse. Many Americans, including those within the Democratic Party, saw Robert Kennedy as the ideal candidate to lead the country through these turbulent times. Ethel was one of the strongest proponents of his potential candidacy. According to biographer Evan Thomas, she was Robert's most consistent advocate of a race for the White House. She believed deeply in his ability to bring about change and was convinced that he was the leader America needed. She urged him to enter the Democratic primary for the 1968 presidential election, despite the immense challenges such a campaign would present. Robert had his reservations. He was still haunted by his brother's assassination, and the political climate was fraught with danger. But Ethel never wavered in her belief that he should run. During the late 1970s, Kennedy demonstrated a renewed commitment to public service by dedicating her time and energy to various social causes. One of the key initiatives she supported was the Bedford-Stuyvesant Restoration Project, a pioneering community development program in Brooklyn, New York. This initiative was one of the first federally funded programs designed to revitalize urban areas by fostering economic growth, creating jobs, and improving housing conditions. Kennedy's involvement in the project reflected her deep interest in addressing issues of poverty and urban decay, aligning with the broader Kennedy family tradition of championing social justice and civil rights. Through her advocacy, fundraising efforts, and hands-on engagement, she played a significant role in advancing the project's mission of empowering disadvantaged communities. Years later, Kennedy briefly stepped into the entertainment industry when she and her son, Michael Kennedy, made a cameo appearance on the NBC sitcom Cheers in 1992. Cheers, which was set in Boston, was one of the most popular television shows of its time, known for its witty dialogue and ensemble cast. Given the Kennedy family's deep ties to Massachusetts and its political legacy, their guest appearance on the show was a notable moment that delighted fans and reinforced the family's connection to Boston's cultural and historical identity. The appearance was also a rare public foray into popular entertainment for Kennedy, who largely focused on political and philanthropic endeavors. As a committed supporter of the Democratic Party, Kennedy played an active role in key political campaigns over the years. During the 2008 Democratic Party presidential primaries, she publicly endorsed Barack Obama over his primary opponent, Hillary Clinton. Her endorsement was seen as highly significant, given the long-standing influence of the Kennedy family in Democratic politics. By backing Obama, she signaled her belief in his vision for the country and aligned herself with the movement for change that he represented. Beyond merely offering her public support, she worked to help fund his campaign and hosted several fundraising events on his behalf. One of her most notable contributions to the Obama campaign was organizing a high-profile fundraiser at Hickory Hill, the Kennedy family's historic estate in McLean, Virginia. The event, held in June 2008, raised an impressive $6 million for Obama's presidential bid. With a staggering ticket price of $28,500 per plate, The dinner attracted prominent Democratic donors and political figures. The evening's keynote speaker was Howard Dean, the former Vermont governor, Democratic National Committee chairman, and 2004 presidential candidate. Dean's presence underscored the importance of the event and reinforced the message of party unity behind Obama's candidacy. In 2012, Kennedy's remarkable life story was brought to the screen in a deeply personal and insightful documentary directed by her youngest child, Rory Kennedy. The film, titled Ethel, provided an intimate look at her life, chronicling her early years of political activism, her marriage to Robert F. Kennedy, and the immense challenges she faced after his tragic assassination in 1968. The documentary offered a rare and touching perspective, featuring candid interviews with Kennedy and her children, interwoven with archival footage, family videos, and historic photographs. Through Ethel, audiences gained a deeper understanding of her unwavering commitment to social justice and political engagement. The film explored her role as a steadfast partner to Robert during his political career, highlighting the moments she stood by his side as he fought for civil rights, social change, and progressive policies. It also depicted the personal hardships she endured after his assassination, when, at the age of 40, she was left to raise their 11 children alone. Despite her grief, she carried on with remarkable resilience, instilling in her children the values of service, compassion, and activism that defined the Kennedy legacy. The documentary was widely praised for its emotional depth and its ability to showcase Ethel Kennedy's enduring strength, humor, and devotion to her family and country. In her later years, Kennedy lived primarily between two residences: the Kennedy compound in Hyannisport, Massachusetts, and a home in Palm Beach, Florida. The Kennedy compound, a place deeply intertwined with the family's history, remained a cherished retreat where she spent time with children, grandchildren, and extended family members. The estate had long been a center of political discussions, celebrations, and reunions, continuing the traditions established by earlier generations of Kennedys. Her home in Palm Beach provided another place of solace, where she enjoyed the warm Florida climate while maintaining her lifelong passion for social causes and democratic politics. On October 10, 2024, Ethel Kennedy passed away in Boston at the age of 96. Her death followed a stroke she had suffered a week earlier, which led to her hospitalization. As news of her passing spread, tributes poured in from across the country, honoring her legacy as a matriarch of one of America's most influential political families, as well as her decades of advocacy for human rights, civil rights, and public service. Her funeral was held on October 14, 2024, at Our Lady of Victory Church in Centerville, Massachusetts, a place significant to the Kennedy family and their deep ties to the Catholic faith. The service was attended by family members, friends, and political figures who came to pay their respects. 2 days later, on October 16th, a larger memorial service took place at the Roman Catholic Cathedral of St. Matthew the Apostle in Washington, D.C. This historic church, where the funeral mass for her husband Robert F. Kennedy had also been held in 1968, became the setting for a powerful tribute to Ethel Kennedy's life and contributions. During the Washington Memorial Service, President Joe Biden, along with former Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, delivered eulogies in her honor. Their speeches reflected on her steadfast dedication to justice, her remarkable ability to carry on in the face of tragedy, and the impact she had on generations of Americans. Biden, a longtime friend of the Kennedy family, spoke of her unwavering faith and her ability to inspire others with her compassion and perseverance. Obama and Clinton both highlighted her role as a political and social activist, emphasizing how her efforts had influenced progressive causes for decades. Following the memorial service, Kennedy was laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery, where she was buried beside her beloved husband, Robert F. Kennedy. The solemn ceremony, attended by her children, grandchildren, and close friends, marked the final chapter in a life dedicated to service, family, and the pursuit of a more just society. What do you think about the tragic life of Ethel Kennedy? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.